Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'm glad you found yourselves here somehow via the power of the internet. Anyway, this is going to be another book talk video. So instead of keeping it the same format as I have for the past 3 weeks, I'm decided to change it up a little tiny bit for this week. Yesterday I was browsing around Tumblr and I came across this book tag that's like 12 or 13 questions about your reading habits, books in general, things of that nature. So I thought I would give that a try. So I have the questions written out here. So if you see me glancing to the side every once in a while, that's why. So let's just get started. And the first question is, what are you currently reading? Now, if you watched last week's book video, this will be familiar. And this is The Almost Moon by Alice Sebold. I am still reading this. Mainly because it's really heavy. I'm enjoying it a lot, but the subject matter is just, it's a lot to take in sometimes. It's depressing, and it's disturbing, and it's very sad. So I'm finding on any given day I can read a chapter or two, and then I kind of gotta put it aside until the next day because it can be a bit too much. Which honestly is saying a lot because I can handle some pretty dark subjects in big doses, but there's just something about this. I'm thinking maybe, there's a lot of mother-daughter relationship themes running through it, and I think that just adds kind of to the sadness and the heaviness of it. So, but I would definitely recommend it, and I'm very much enjoying it. So, number 2. And that is the first book that had a major influence on you. Now, I'm going to name 3 books for this question, all of which happened when I was in my teens. So the first one is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, and I read that when I was, I would say, 11 or 12, and I loved it. I read it and I reread it and I loved these sisters in this world, and I was so incredibly taken by it. And shortly after I had read it for the first time was when the film came out starring Winona Ryder and Christian Bale as Laurie, and that was it. I will forever have a soft spot in my heart for Christian Bale because of his portrayal of Laurie. It was perfect, it was heartbreaking, and he was beautiful. Just perfect. I loved it. Second is Anne of Green Gables by Lucy Maud Montgomery. This book, I think, was the first book that made me truly gut-wrenchingly cry. I was close in age to when I read Little Women. I'm going to guess maybe 13 or 12 or 13, and it broke my heart into 100,000 pieces. I loved Anne. I still love Anne. Whenever I get that nostalgic feeling to pick up Anne of Green Gables. I love her so much. I love everybody. I love the scenery, and having grown up on the East Coast myself in Newfoundland, I can relate to that sort of small town, oceanside small town sort of feeling that you get from that book. When I was, probably 6 or 7 years ago, so when I was like 27, 28, I actually went to Prince Edward Island for the first time. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Anne of Green Gables, it takes place in a small, very tiny Canadian province, Prince Edward Island. And they've kind of, over the years, they've kind of made it their thing in this really beautiful, sort of classic way. And so I went there for the first time, and when I went there, like, they have the Green Gables house. They have so much dedicated to the author, and when I went there, I felt like I was a child again, and I loved it so much, and I can't wait to go again. And finally, it would be The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Now, this book was given to me by my aunt when I was 17 or 18. Since then, I've gifted it to friends. I've told everyone about it. It's a book that, it's very short. It's a very slim volume. And it's about a man who comes to a small town, and he's a prophet, and he is there to share his thoughts on a multitude of topics. Love, children, friendship, religion, all kinds of things. And I can remember reading it and just being so incredibly moved, and also having it hit on a lot of ideas that I had at that point just started to play around with myself. And it changed the way I thought about a lot of things, and it reaffirmed the way I felt about a lot of things, and it was just an incredible experience to read. And I would 100% recommend it to anybody. So what's next? What is the most important part of a book in your opinion? In my opinion, there are two most important parts of a book. Number one is characters. Good characters. Well-written, relatable, understandable characters. And if they're not relatable and understandable, then I want a fantastic villain. I want someone who's going to sweep me off my feet with just how incredibly horrible they are. And the other part of that is the writing. You can have an incredibly unique, amazing, perfect idea for a story, and if you can't write worth shit, what's the point? I lose interest immediately. But if you're a good writer, you can take even the most recycled of ideas and spin it in a way that only you can, and I will be all over it. So, what do you think about movie TV adaptations? Now, I touched on that briefly when we were talking about Little Women 2 questions ago. But yeah, I think they definitely have their place. I think that it can be a beautiful way to bring to life something that we love. The perfect example of that, of course, is Game of Thrones. They're excellent books, and it's an excellent series that sticks very closely to the books, and I love that about it. Also, in terms of TV series, Dexter. Now, I read the first 2 books from the Dexter series, Darkly Dreaming Dexter, and then the second one that I can't remember the name of. I wasn't a fan of the books. I didn't go any further than the second, and I didn't really love what I had read. But I did really enjoy the first 4 to 5 seasons of the show. After that, it kind of went downhill, but the first, I'm going to say 5 seasons of the show was excellent. It was well written, and the characters were great, and I cared, and I wasn't sure that I would after I had such little interest in the books. What else? In terms of movies, a book that I love is The Hours by Michael Cunningham, and that was turned into an amazing movie starring Meryl Streep and Julianne Moore and Nicole Kidman, and I loved it, and I love the book, and they're very similar, but they're also very different, and I love it. So yes, for the most part, I think that both can have their place, and I understand feeling really kind of terrified when you hear that, your favorite book is being turned into a movie, but oftentimes, if you just go into it with an open mind, like, maybe it's not going to be the same. Maybe it's going to be an entirely different retelling. So if you look at them as separate entities, I think it's fine. Do you loan books? I have. I've loaned books, and I've never gotten them back. And I've loaned books, and they've come back unscathed. For the most part, I hate loaning books. I hate it. I mean, I will, especially if it's someone who I know and trust and know I will be seeing again many times. But I don't like it. I get anxious. Favorite female protagonist? I feel like I'm not going to correctly answer this. I feel like I'm going to answer it, and then I'm going to have a million different answers that I wish I had said as I'm editing. So I'm going to say Jo March from Little Women. Because I think she's the one that hit me the hardest with how much I identified with her. She was a young writer who worked so hard and wanted so much, and I thought that was so cool. I thought what she was doing was so interesting, and that scene when she comes home and Amy has burned her manuscript. I can't even properly articulate it. I wanted to die reading it. Like, it was like, how is she ever gonna move past this and forgive her sister? And of course she does, and of course she would, but I remember being so just devastated for her and imagining it happening to me, and just not, that was a big moment in a book for me. But I love Jo March. She's so special and so beautifully crafted. So I'm gonna go with that sort of classic answer. You know, there's a million wonderful female protagonists and a million wonderful books, but we'll just go with that for now. Oh, next up, scariest book you've ever read. This is a tough one. I've read a lot of scary books. I'm gonna say, I guess, Stephen King's The Shining. There's just something monumentally terrifying about it. Just about, you know, with no backstory, really. You just... Well, I mean, the book gives you... You do get some backstory. I won't say with no backstory, but just, you know, seemingly a man goes to an isolated location with his family and loses his fucking mind. Like, that's terrifying. Also, when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I used to read a lot of R.L. Stine books, his Fear Street series, and a lot of Christopher Pike books. And I can remember being paralyzed with fear. Like, just laying in bed and not even knowing how to get up and turn off the light. Those books scared me so much when I was a kid. What do you think of ebooks? Ebooks, you know, if you like them, that's great. I personally have never read an ebook. I don't own an ebook reader. I have no plans to purchase one. I'm sure it'll happen eventually. Maybe, maybe not, but I'm sure it will. But for now, I'm sticking to books I can hold in my hands. So, I don't know. It seems like every so often I feel like I'm the last person without one. And I appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that you can, you know, throw this e-reader in your purse or your backpack and have literally hundreds of books with you. That's very enticing to me. I love that. But at the same time, I can't entirely get behind it. Okay, ever have a book you wish you could unread? Sure. And not because it's bad. I think bad books have their place. You know, they can either be humorous because they're so bad, or, you know, it can teach you something, you know, as a writer. I learn sometimes as much from bad books as I do from good ones. But I do have books that I wish I could unread. I don't have any specific titles to give you, but sometimes you read a book and it's so good, and you close it up and it's done, and I just sit there and I wish that it wasn't over. I wish that I hadn't read it. I wish I could go back in time and not have read it just so I could read it again. That happens quite frequently. Okay, favorite genre. I love all different kinds of genres. I love literary fiction. I love historical fiction. I love reading about queens and kings and everything that kind of happened back then. I love the 16th century, 17th century, 18th century, all of it. I love historical fiction. I love fantasy. I love I love something from every genre. It's hard to pick. But if I had to right now, I think as of today, I would say historical fiction. I love it. I love it, love it. Where do you purchase books? These days I live in a small Alberta town, so I purchase books mainly online on Amazon Canada. But if I had, you know, if I was back in the city again, I love going to used and rare bookstores. I love them. There was a amazing one in the city I lived in Ontario called Juniper Books. It was in an old, like, 4-story house, and every level was jammed packed full of gorgeous books. And they even kind of kept it themed, like, in what used to be the kitchen, it still kind of looked like a kitchen, and there was all the cookbooks. And you know, one of the rooms was set up to look like a child's bedroom, and in there was all the children's books. And it was such a beautiful bookstore, and I miss it so much. Yeah, but other than that, Amazon mostly these days. And the final question is, did your family influence you to read when you were younger? And yes, they did. Especially my aunts and uncles. I had some really well-read aunts and uncles who often gave me books for Christmas and birthday presents, an uncle in particular. And those were always my favorite presents to open. Like, when Christmas came and I saw his package under the Christmas tree, I knew that it was books, usually a few, and I was always so excited to open them. And even sometimes when the books that I got were a little old for me, like I remember when I was 12, he gave me the complete collection of the Bronte sisters. And even inside he wrote, you know, maybe not for now, but, you know, for later. And I can remember so eagerly trying to read it, you know, and I did. I read it at the time, but it was a bit beyond me, and I got much, much more from it when I read it again later. But those gifts just kept me so interested, and I loved listening to them talk about books and hearing what they got out of it, and that made me interested. And my grandmother as well, she read a lot. And my grandfather, especially in later years, once he retired, he read a whole lot as well. And now I've passed that on to my daughter. Like, when she first started to read, like when she was little, before she could read, I read to her every single night. And then when she got a bit older and could read herself, we'd take turns reading. Like, she'd read a few pages, and I'd read a few pages to her. And, you know, that went on for a bit. Now, of course, she's almost 12 now, so she's grown out of wanting, you know, me to read to her so much. But I love, after she goes to bed at night, and then when I walk past her room, I see her huddled under the blankets with her book, and that just means so much to me. So I love that I've passed that love on to her. So yeah, that is it for now. And I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and please do subscribe. I put out book videos every Wednesday. And please also, in the comments down below, let me know what you're currently reading. I would love to know. And if you want to answer any of these questions and let me know, you know, your thoughts on any of them, I would love to hear that. So, yeah, I'll see you guys again on Friday with another video. And I hope that your week's going great. And I'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye-bye.